Hello friends, welcome to Charm Stories. Please subscribe to this channel and share the stories to others. By the way, to enable subtitles or captions, look for the CC icon on the video player. It will be located in the top right corner if subtitles are available. Now let's dive into the story. As the first rays of sunlight peeked over the horizon, the automatic doors of San Rafael General Hospital opened to reveal a surprising sight. The morning shift was just starting, and the air was filled with the comforting smell of fresh coffee mixed with the familiar scent of hospital disinfectant. At the emergency reception desk, Nurse Faith Demola, a veteran with 15 years of experience, was reviewing the previous night's reports, savoring her still-too-hot coffee. She expected a typical day, unaware that she was about to witness one of the most heartbreaking cases of her career. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps interrupted her routine. Faith looked up, expecting to see a colleague arriving late or an early patient. Instead, what she saw made her freeze. A young girl, no more than 10 years old, walked through the doors. Her brown hair was messy, her t-shirt and shorts looked like they'd been hastily thrown on. But most startling of all was what she held tightly in her arms, a tiny bundle wrapped in a blanket. "Oh my God," Faith whispered, quickly stepping out from behind the counter. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" The little girl looked up with frightened eyes. Her arms trembled as she clutched the bundle close to her chest. I was told to come here," she whispered, her voice shaky. Faith approached carefully, extending her hands with a gentle smile. "You're safe now, honey. Can I see what you're carrying?" Slowly, Faith peeled back a corner of the blanket, and her heart skipped a beat. Inside was a newborn, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the turmoil surrounding him. "Susan!" Faith called out to a colleague who had just entered the emergency room. "I need you here now." Susan, a young nurse just beginning her second year, rushed over, her eyes widening at the scene before her. "Oh my God," she whispered, taking in the sight of the little girl and the tiny baby. "Call Dr. Carson," Faith instructed Susan, her voice urgent. "And get a stretcher quickly." As Susan hurried off, Faith knelt down in front of the girl, keeping her voice calm and soothing despite the flurry of questions racing through her mind. "What's your name, sweetheart?" The girl blinked, looking like she was struggling to focus. "My name is Benita," she murmured after a moment. Faith smiled warmly. "Benita, you're so brave for coming here," she said gently. "Can you tell me what happened?" Benita looked down at the baby in her arms, then back at Faith, tears glistening in her eyes. I don't know," she said in a barely audible voice. "I just woke up and he was there." Faith's heart ached at Benita's words. She had a feeling this story was much deeper than what was being said. "It's okay, Benita," she said softly. "You don't have to explain anything right now. We're going to take care of you and the baby. You're not alone." At that moment, Susan returned, wheeling a stretcher and followed closely by Dr. Carson, a middle-aged man with a calm but serious demeanor. He took in the scene quickly, focusing on Benita and the baby she was holding. "What do we have here, Faith?" Dr. Carson asked, his voice steady and professional. Faith nodded, briefly updating him. "This is Benita, approximately 10 years old. She just arrived holding a newborn. She seems confused and mentioned feeling pain." Dr. Carson nodded thoughtfully, keeping his gaze on Benita. He crouched down to her level, his tone calm and reassuring. "Hello, Benita. I'm Dr. Carson. We're going to help you and the baby, all right? Can you lie down on this stretcher so we can make sure you're both safe and comfortable?" Benita looked at the stretcher nervously, clutching the baby close to her chest. Her eyes wide, she asked in a trembling voice, "You won't take the baby away from me, will you?" Dr. Carson and Nurse Faith Demola exchanged a reassuring look before Dr. Carson spoke gently. "No, Benita. We won't take the baby away from you. We just need to make sure both of you are okay." Faith and Susan moved carefully to help Benita onto the stretcher. As she shifted, Benita winced in pain, making Faith's heart sink, confirming that something serious was going on. As they made their way down the hallway, whispers and startled looks began to follow them from the hospital staff who saw the young girl holding a newborn. However, the medical team stayed focused on Benita, ignoring the murmurs. "Benita," Faith said softly as they walked, "is there anyone we can call? Family? Friends?" Benita's grip tightened on the baby, and she shook her head, her gaze fixed protectively on him. I don't know. I don't want anyone to be mad. Dr. Carson furrowed his brow but kept his voice calm. Right now, Benita, don't worry about anything except being here. We're just glad you came, and we'll do everything to help you. When they reached an examination room, Susan moved efficiently to prepare the area while Faith helped Benita lie down on the hospital bed, making sure she was comfortable. Benita, Dr. Carson began gently, we'd like to check on the baby, just to make sure he's healthy. Is it okay if Nurse Faith holds him for a moment? Benita hesitated, her arms tightening around the bundle, her eyes full of worry. Faith stepped forward with a kind smile. Don't worry, sweetheart. You can watch everything we do, and I'll be right here the whole time. After a long pause, Benita gave a small nod. With great care, Faith took the baby from her arms. The little one stirred slightly, but stayed asleep. It's a boy, Faith murmured softly, looking at the newborn with an experienced eye. He looks like he's only a few hours old. Dr. Carson nodded thoughtfully, taking mental notes. Susan, let's prepare for a full examination for him. Faith, stay with Benita. I'm going to ask her a few questions. Susan took the baby over to an examination table nearby, while Dr. Carson pulled up a chair next to Benita's bed, his expression kind but deeply concerned. Benita, he began, I know this must be hard for you, but we need to ask you a few questions to understand how best to help you. Is that okay? Benita nodded, her eyes glued to the baby as Susan gently checked his vitals. Dr. Carson continued, Can you tell me how you got to the hospital this morning? Benita blinked, trying to recall. I walked, I think. It wasn't too far. Dr. Carson leaned in slightly. Did anyone bring you here? Did anyone tell you to come to the hospital? Benita seemed confused, but she answered quietly. A lady on the street. She saw me and told me I should come here. Faith and Dr. Carson exchanged a concerned glance. The story was becoming more complex with every answer. Benita, Dr. Carson asked gently, do you know how the baby came to be with you? A frown creased Benita's forehead as she struggled to remember. I don't know. I just woke up and he was there with me. Her voice dropped to a whisper. It hurts a lot, doctor. Did I do something wrong? Faith's heart broke at Benita's words. She reached out, taking Benita's hand in her own and squeezing it gently. No, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong. We're just here to help you, and we'll make sure you're okay. Dr. Carson nodded, his face filled with compassion. Benita, I need to examine you to find out why you're in pain. Is it okay if I do that? Fear flashed in Benita's eyes, but she nodded. Faith stayed by her side, holding her hand and murmuring soft words of encouragement as Dr. Carson began a gentle examination. The room was silent, filled with a sense of urgency and concern. After a moment, Susan returned from examining the baby, her professional mask hiding a look of shock. The baby appears to be in good health, Susan reported quietly. He'll need some more detailed tests, but his vitals are stable. Dr. Carson nodded, looking thoughtful as he completed his preliminary exam of Benita. He exchanged a significant look with Faith and Susan. Benita, he said gently, we're going to take very good care of both you and the baby. We'll need to run a few more tests, and it's likely that you'll need to stay here for a little while. Do you understand? Benita nodded, though it was clear she didn't fully grasp the situation. Her voice was soft as she asked, Can I see the baby now? Of course. Faith replied warmly, signaling Susan to bring the baby over. As Susan placed the baby in Benita's arms, Benita looked down at him with a fierce love and protectiveness that seemed far beyond her years. She held him close, her expression softening. Dr. Carson approached Faith Demola, his voice low and steady. We need to contact social services and the police and get a specialized team ready for more detailed exams. This is going to be a tough case. Faith nodded, her heart feeling heavy with the weight of the situation. I'll stay with her, she said, glancing over at Benita, who was now cradling the baby once again. Her young face was a mix of confusion and tenderness as she looked at the newborn in her arms. Dr. Carson left the room, his mind already planning the next steps. Faith sat down beside Benita, observing the girl as she gazed at the baby with both awe and a hint of fear. He's so small, Benita whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Faith smiled gently. Yes, he is. You're being very brave, Benita. We're all here to help you, okay? You're not alone. Benita's eyes filled with unshed tears as she looked up. "I'm scared," she admitted in a quiet voice. Faith felt her heart break a little more. "I know, sweetheart, but you're safe here, I promise." She held Benita's hand as the morning sun slowly rose, filling the room with a soft, golden light. In that moment, Faith knew that her role was to be the comforting presence Benita desperately needed. Outside the room, the hospital was alive with activity. Staff members hurried past, some casting curious glances toward the closed door, whispers of astonishment and concern spreading among them. Dr. Carson returned, tension in his eyes but his expression calm. He walked over to Benita with a warm smile. "Benita," he said gently, "we've prepared a special room for you and the baby. It'll be more comfortable and private. Would it be okay if we moved you there?" Benita looked over at Faith, who nodded encouragingly. "I'll be with you the whole time, sweetheart," Faith promised. Carefully, the team moved Benita and the baby to a private room in the pediatric wing. This new room was bright, painted in soft colors, with cheerful drawings on the walls, designed to help young patients feel at ease. Once Benita was settled, Dr. Carson sat beside her bed, his voice calm yet serious. "Benita, there are some people who will come to talk to you soon. They're specialists who want to help. Is that okay?" Benita nodded, her face showing a mix of confusion and fear. "Why is everyone so worried? Did I do something wrong?" Dr. Carson gently took her hand. "No, Benita, you haven't done anything wrong, but something serious has happened and we need to understand it so we can help you the best we can." Just then, a social worker named Alexa entered the room, her face compassionate but professional as she approached Benita. "Hello, Benita," she greeted softly. "I'm Alexa. I'm here to help you and make sure you're taken care of. Can I sit with you for a little while?" Benita nodded, her gaze shifting between Alexa, Dr. Carson, and Faith. Faith gave her hand a reassuring squeeze and offered a comforting smile. Alexa took a seat next to the bed, her voice gentle and warm. "Benita, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? How old are you?" "I'm 10 years old," Benita replied quietly, her fingers nervously fidgeting with the blanket covering the baby. Alexa nodded, her expression kind. "And do you live with your parents, Benita?" The girl lowered her gaze, her voice barely a whisper. "With my mom and my stepfather." Dr. Carson and Faith exchanged a subtle glance, keeping their expressions neutral. Alexa leaned in, her voice filled with empathy. "Do you know where they are now, sweetheart?" Benita shook her head, her eyes brimming with tears. "I don't want them to come. They'll be really mad." Alexa's tone softened as she leaned closer. "No one here is mad at you, Benita. We're all just worried about you and want to help. Can you tell us why you think they'd be angry?" Benita hesitated, looking down at the baby resting peacefully in her arms. Her voice was barely audible as she finally spoke. Because I brought the baby here. It was supposed to be a secret." A heavy silence filled the room, each adult processing the implications of her words. Faith, sensing the tension, stepped in with a soft smile. "Benita, are you hungry? I can bring you something to eat if you'd like." Benita nodded slowly, grateful for the distraction. "Yes, please." As Faith left the room to get some food, Dr. Carson turned to Alexa and spoke in a low voice. "We'll need to run more detailed tests for both Benita and the baby, and we need to alert the authorities." Alexa nodded, her face serious. "I'll start the necessary paperwork. Right now, the most important thing is for Benita to feel safe and comfortable." Dr. Carson turned back to Benita, who was still cradling the baby, a mixture of curiosity and worry on her face. "Benita," he said gently, "we need to run a few more tests to make sure you and the baby are healthy. Is it okay if some specialists come in to check on you?" Benita's eyes widened, a flash of fear crossing her face. "Will it hurt?" Dr. Carson gave her a reassuring smile. "We'll do everything we can to make sure it doesn't hurt, and Faith or I will be with you the whole time if you'd like." Just then, Faith returned with a tray of food, the comforting aroma of hot soup and fresh bread filling the room. "Look, Benita," Faith said warmly. "I've brought you something to eat. Why don't you try a little soup while we talk?" Benita nodded, allowing Faith to place the tray in front of her. Faith took the baby in her arms so Benita could eat, gently rocking him as Benita took slow bites. Alexa continued to ask soft questions, careful not to overwhelm her. "Benita, can you tell me how you felt when you saw the baby for the first time?" Benita set down the spoon, her gaze drifting to the small baby now in Faith's arms. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. But I also thought he was cute. Alexa nodded in understanding. It's completely normal to feel scared, Benita. You did the right thing by coming to the hospital. Benita's voice trembled as she asked, "What's going to happen now? Are you going to send me home?" Dr. Carson intervened gently. "For now, you'll stay here at the hospital so we can make sure you're completely okay. Once we understand more, we'll figure out what happens next. Is that all right?" Benita nodded, though the uncertainty clearly troubled her. Faith, noticing her worry, tried to lighten the mood with a warm smile. "Benita, have you thought of a name for the baby?" The question took Benita by surprise, her eyes widening. "Can I name him?" "Of course," Faith replied with a soft smile. "Do you have any ideas?" Benita thought for a moment, her face softening as she looked at the baby. "Maybe Junior, so he can grow up strong and kind." The adults exchanged glances, moved by her innocence and the tenderness in her voice. "Junior is a wonderful name," Alexa said softly. "I'm sure he'll live up to it." As the conversation continued, Dr. Carson quietly stepped out of the room, meeting with the head of pediatrics, Dr. Reynolds, who was waiting in the hallway with a concerned expression. "What are we dealing with, Carson?" Dr. Reynolds asked quietly. Dr. Carson sighed, a weight pressing on his shoulders. "It's more than we thought. Benita is only 10, and the baby appears to be a newborn. It seems we're dealing with extreme child abuse." Dr. Reynolds closed his eyes for a moment, taking in the gravity of the situation. "Have you alerted the authorities?" "Yes. Alexa, the social worker, is coordinating everything. We'll need a specialized team, including child psychologists." Dr. Reynolds nodded solemnly. "Of course. Let's make sure we provide her with everything she needs. This case is a priority." Back in the room, Benita had finished her meal and was once again holding Junior, her gaze filled with a mixture of love and confusion as she rocked him gently in her arms. Faith DeMola sat beside Benita, her heart heavy yet filled with admiration as she watched the young girl tenderly stroke the baby's cheek. "He's so tiny," Benita murmured, a look of wonder and worry mingling on her face. "Will he grow soon?" Faith smiled warmly, trying to bring some lightness into the moment. "Yes, he'll grow fast. Babies change every day. Soon, he'll be a lot bigger than this." Benita's face softened slightly, but a shadow of worry lingered. "What's going to happen to him? Will he stay with me?" Alexa, the social worker, who had been silently observing, spoke up in a gentle voice. "Right now, our first concern is to make sure both you and Junior are healthy and safe. Whatever happens, we'll make sure you're both well taken care of." Benita nodded slowly, though the uncertainty still showed on her face. Noticing her unease, Faith decided to lighten the mood. "Benita, would you like me to read you a story? We have some nice books here." Benita's eyes brightened at the suggestion. "Can you read me one about angels? Like, for Junior?" Faith's heart ached for the innocent hopefulness in the young girl's eyes. "Of course, sweetheart. Let me go find a good one." As Faith left the room, Dr. Carson stepped in, his face kind but serious. "Benita," he greeted gently, "we're going to need to run some tests on you and Junior soon. But before that, is there anything you'd like? Maybe something to make you feel more comfortable?" Benita thought quietly, then looked down shyly. "Can I have a stuffed animal for Junior?" Dr. Carson's heart tugged at the simple request. "Of course, Benita. I'll make sure Junior gets a teddy bear to keep him company." As the day progressed, San Rafael General Hospital became a hub of coordinated activity. Specialist doctors, extra nurses, and more social workers were brought in. Detective Elvis and a team of police officers discreetly interviewed the medical staff outside Benita's room. Inside, however, Benita remained blissfully unaware of the bustling activity. She was listening intently as Faith read her a story about guardian angels. Junior slept soundly in a crib beside the bed, a small teddy bear placed protectively beside him. In that calm moment, the adults knew this was only the beginning of a difficult journey. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the room, Faith noticed Benita had finally fallen asleep, worn out from the day's emotions. Faith sighed, bracing herself for the days ahead, aware that this was a case that would leave a lasting impact on everyone involved. The next morning dawned gray and rainy, mirroring the gravity of the situation. Inside the dimly lit room, Faith was gently changing Junior's diaper as Benita slowly awoke, blinking as memories of the previous day came rushing back. "Good morning, sweetheart," Faith greeted her softly. "How are you feeling today?" Benita shrugged, her voice groggy. "I'm okay, I guess. How's Junior?" Faith lifted the baby so Benita could see him. "He's perfect, such a strong, healthy boy." Just then, Dr. Carson entered the room, followed by Alexa and a kind-looking woman whom Benita hadn't seen before. "Good morning, Benita," Dr. Carson greeted warmly. "I hope you had some rest. We have some people who would like to talk to you today. Is that okay?" Benita nodded, her eyes cautiously observing the newcomers. The unfamiliar woman stepped forward, her expression soft and reassuring. "Hello, Benita. I'm Dr. Cosby, a child psychologist. I'm here to help you understand everything that's happening and to make sure you feel safe. Is it okay if we talk for a little while?" Benita nodded again, though her apprehension was clear. Sensing her discomfort, Faith offered, "Would you like to hold Junior while you talk?" A small smile appeared on Benita's face as she held out her arms. Faith carefully placed Junior in her lap and made sure they were comfortable. Dr. Cosby sat close by, her voice gentle and calming. "Benita, I know all of this must be confusing and maybe a bit scary. I want you to know you can talk to us about anything that's bothering you. Is there anything you'd like to ask?" Benita hesitated, her fingers lightly touching the blanket wrapped around Junior. Finally, in a small, hesitant voice, she asked, "When can I go home?" The adults exchanged quick, empathetic glances. Alexa answered gently, "Right now, the most important thing is to make sure you're completely safe and healthy. We'll need you to stay here for a little while, okay?" Benita's face fell slightly, her brow furrowing. "But what about my mom? Does she know I'm here?" Dr. Carson took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "Benita, we're trying to contact your family, but before we do that, we need to understand what happened. Can you tell us a bit about how Junior came to be with you?" The young girl looked down at the baby in her arms, her face clouded with distress. In a quiet, almost fearful voice, she whispered, I don't know. I just woke up and he was there." Dr. Cosby gently interjected, "Benita, I know this is hard to talk about, but we need you to be honest. You're not in trouble, I promise." Benita remained silent, her expression tense. Faith moved closer, taking her hand reassuringly. "It's okay, sweetheart, we're all here for you." After a long silence, Benita finally looked up, her eyes glistening with tears. I didn't want it to happen. I didn't understand what was going on. It hurt and I was scared." A heavy silence filled the room. Dr. Carson's face hardened as he struggled to maintain his composure. "Benita," he said gently, "I need to ask you a few more questions. They might be difficult, but it's very important that you answer them truthfully. Can you do that for me?" Benita nodded hesitantly, clutching Junior closer. Dr. Cosby continued softly, "Did someone hurt you, Benita? Did someone touch you in a way that made you feel scared or uncomfortable?" Tears began streaming down Benita's cheeks as she nodded. Alexa, her voice soft with empathy, asked, "Can you tell us who it was, sweetheart?" Benita squeezed her eyes shut, as if trying to block out a painful memory. In a barely audible voice, she answered, My stepfather." The revelation landed like a blow. Faith stifled a sob, and Dr. Carson clenched his fists, anger and sadness flashing across his face. Alexa and Dr. Cosby exchanged somber glances, realizing the gravity of the situation had just deepened. Dr. Cosby reached out to Benita, her tone filled with warmth and reassurance. "Benita, you were so brave to tell us. I want you to understand that none of this is your fault. You did absolutely nothing wrong." Benita looked up, searching their faces for validation. "Really? But I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to do." Alexa leaned closer, her voice full of kindness. "It was never your responsibility to say anything, Benita. You're a child. The adults in your life were supposed to protect you." Dr. Carson, having regained his composure, approached gently. "Benita, we need to run some tests to make sure you're healthy. Is it okay if we bring in a special doctor?" Benita nodded, though fear still clouded her expression. Faith stepped in, giving her hand a comforting squeeze. "I'll be with you the whole time if you want, sweetheart." Benita's eyes softened a little. "And Junior?" Dr. Carson nodded reassuringly. "Junior will stay here in the room with you. We won't take him anywhere without letting you know." As the medical team continued to prepare for examinations, Dr. Cosby, a calm and compassionate psychologist, sat beside Benita, speaking softly to her, hoping to ease her anxiety. "Benita," Dr. Cosby began gently, "I know this is a lot to handle right now, but I want you to know how strong you are. You've been through something very hard, and yet you're here, taking care of Junior. That takes courage and love." Benita looked down at Junior, a faint smile forming on her lips. "He's so tiny," she murmured. "I just want to make sure he's okay. He needs someone to take care of him." Dr. Cosby nodded, her eyes full of understanding. "And you're doing an amazing job, Benita, but it's also important for us to take care of you too. Is that okay?" Just then, another doctor entered the room. She had a warm smile and a gentle tone. "Hello, Benita. I'm Dr. Sujit, and I'm going to run a few tests to make sure you're healthy. Is it all right if we get started?" Benita nodded but tensed up, visibly nervous. Sensing this, Faith DeMola, the kind nurse who had been by Benita's side, moved closer and offered her hand. "I'm right here with you, sweetheart," Faith assured. "Everything's going to be okay." While Dr. Sujit completed the examination, Dr. Carson stepped out to meet with the hospital's legal and social services team in a nearby conference room. Detective Elvis, a tall man with a focused expression, began the meeting by speaking with controlled anger. "This is clearly a case of abuse," he stated. "We need to act quickly to protect Benita and Junior." The social worker, Alexa, nodded gravely. "We're starting the process to ensure that Benita is placed somewhere safe. It's clear that her current environment isn't secure." Dr. Carson leaned forward, his face showing his concern. "What do we know about her mother?" "We're still trying to locate her," Detective Elvis replied. "There's already a warrant out for the arrest of the stepfather." Meanwhile, back in Benita's room, Dr. Sujit was finishing up her examination. "You've been incredibly brave, Benita," she said with a reassuring smile. "We're all done now." Visibly relieved, Benita relaxed against the pillows. Faith handed her a glass of water, which she sipped gratefully. "Am I sick?" she asked quietly. Dr. Sujit shook her head gently. "No, Benita, you're not sick, but your body has been through a lot. We'll help you recover fully." Just then, Junior began to cry softly. Instantly, Benita's face filled with concern. "I think he's hungry," she said, looking toward Faith. Faith smiled. "You're absolutely right. It's probably time for his feeding. Would you like to help me feed him?" Benita's eyes lit up, and she nodded eagerly. Faith carefully prepared a bottle and guided Benita on how to hold and feed Junior. Dr. Cosby watched from the corner, touched by the natural care and bond Benita shared with the baby. "You're doing a wonderful job, Benita," Dr. Cosby praised softly. "Junior is lucky to have you." "He's easy to love," Benita murmured, her gaze fixed on the baby feeding in her arms. A few minutes later, Dr. Carson and Alexa entered the room, their expressions serious. Benita noticed right away, and her face tensed with worry. "What's happening?" she asked, a hint of fear in her voice. "Are they going to take Junior away?" Alexa moved closer, speaking in a soothing tone. "No, Benita. Junior will stay here with you, but there are some important things we need to discuss." Dr. Carson stepped forward, his voice gentle yet firm. "Benita, based on what you've told us, we've had to inform the authorities. They're here to help, not to hurt you." Benita's eyes widened, panic flashing across her face. "The police?" she asked in a small voice. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, sweetheart," Alexa assured, her voice filled with empathy. "You did nothing wrong. The police are here to protect you and Junior." Benita's voice trembled as she asked, "And my mom? Does she know I'm here?" There was a pause before Alexa answered delicately. "We're trying to reach her, but for now, the most important thing is making sure you're safe and well." Benita looked down, processing the words, her gaze settling on Junior, who was now peacefully sleeping in her arms. She whispered, "Am I going to have to go back home?" The question struck everyone in the room deeply. Dr. Cosby responded with warmth in her voice. "No, Benita. You're not going back to that house. We're going to make sure you're somewhere safe, and we'll do our best to keep you and Junior together." The rest of the day was filled with activity. Officers came and went quietly, while the hospital staff attended to both Benita and Junior's needs. By mid-afternoon, Detective Elvis entered the room and approached Dr. Carson and Dr. Cosby. "I need to speak with Benita for a bit," he said gently. "We need her statement to move forward with the case." Dr. Carson looked concerned. She's already been through so much today. Is it absolutely necessary? Detective Elvis nodded with understanding. I'll be as gentle as possible, I promise. Dr. Cosby added, I'll stay with her. If it becomes too much, we'll stop immediately. Reluctantly, Dr. Carson agreed. They approached Benita, who was holding Junior while Faith taught her how to change his diaper. Benita, Dr. Carson said softly, Detective Elvis here needs to ask you some questions, but don't worry. Dr. Cosby and I will stay with you. Benita looked at Detective Elvis, clutching Junior protectively. The detective offered a reassuring smile. Hi, Benita. I know you've had a hard day, but we need to talk about what happened. Is that okay? Benita nodded slowly, glancing at Dr. Cosby for support. Detective Elvis took a seat near her and asked gently, Can you tell me a little about your home life? Who do you live with? Benita's hands trembled slightly as she replied, With my mom and my stepfather. And what's it like living there? Detective Elvis continued carefully. Benita lowered her gaze, her fingers fidgeting with Junior's blanket. Sometimes it's hard. My stepfather, he gets mad a lot. Detective Elvis's voice softened. Does he get mad at you? Tears welled up in Benita's eyes as she nodded. Yes, he says I'm a bother, that I shouldn't have been born. Dr. Cosby reached over, taking Benita's hand, offering silent support. The detective continued gently. Can you tell me about the night Junior was born? What happened? Benita squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out painful memories. She whispered, It hurt. I was scared. I called for my mom, but she wasn't there. My stepfather came into my room. Detective Elvis paused, his heart heavy with empathy. It's okay, Benita. You're very brave. Can you tell me what happened afterward? Benita's eyes returned to Junior, her voice filled with a mix of pain and relief. He told me to keep it a secret, but I was scared and Junior wouldn't stop crying, so I ran here, to the hospital. Detective Elvis nodded, visibly moved. You did the right thing, Benita. You were so brave to come here. Dr. Carson stepped forward, his face full of kindness. How are you feeling, Benita? Do you need some rest? Benita shook her head. No, I just want to know what's going to happen now. Detective Elvis spoke sincerely. We're going to make sure you're safe. Your stepfather will never be able to hurt you again. Benita's voice shook. And my mom? Detective Elvis exchanged a glance with Alexa, who had just entered the room. Alexa spoke softly. We're trying to find her, Benita. I promise we'll do everything we can to understand what happened. As Benita absorbed this information, her young face crumpled with worry. Can I stay here at the hospital? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I feel safe here. Dr. Carson gave her a gentle smile. Yes, Benita, you'll stay here for now. But soon, we'll need to find a more permanent place for you and Junior. A flicker of fear crossed her face. Will we be separated? She asked, her voice trembling as her eyes darted between Dr. Carson and Alexa, the social worker who had just entered the room. Alexa took a step closer, her tone soothing but clear. Benita, it's a complicated situation. You're very young, and taking care of a baby is a big responsibility. But we promise to do everything we can to keep you and Junior together and ensure both of you are safe. Benita considered this quietly, her gaze resting on Junior as he slept peacefully in his crib. She took a deep breath and looked back at Alexa. Can I learn to take care of him better? I want to be a good mom to Junior. Faith, the nurse who had been by Benita's side since she arrived, was visibly moved by the young girl's determination. She stepped forward, her eyes soft with emotion. Benita, sweetheart, you're already a wonderful mom. The love you have for Junior, that desire to care for him, is what matters most. Dr. Cosby, the hospital psychologist who had been overseeing Benita's case, interjected gently. Benita, it's natural to want to protect Junior, but you're still just a kid yourself. You need the chance to grow, to play, to learn. We're all here to help you. You don't have to do this alone. Benita nodded, though the idea of being separated from Junior clearly frightened her. But will I still get to see him, even if we can't be together? Her eyes searched Alexa's face for reassurance. Alexa smiled warmly. We'll do everything we can to keep you and Junior close, Benita. For now, let's focus on keeping you both healthy and safe, all right? The rest of the day was filled with an endless stream of doctors, nurses, and social workers bustling in and out of Benita's room. The emotional toll eventually wore her down, and by the evening, she fell asleep with Junior snoozing in the crib beside her. Outside the room, Dr. Cosby, Dr. Carson, and Detective Elvis gathered with the legal team to discuss the next steps. "The case is clear," Detective Elvis said, his tone hard. "Child abuse, rape of a minor, and neglect on the part of the mother. We're going to prosecute the stepfather to the fullest extent of the law." Dr. Carson looked troubled. "And what about the mother?" he asked. Alexa sighed. "We haven't been able to locate her yet. Given the circumstances, it's likely that she won't retain custody of Benita." Dr. Cosby, who had become especially invested in Benita's case, spoke up. "We'll need to find a suitable foster home that can handle this situation. Ideally, we'd like to place them together, but if that's not possible, we'll need to ensure Benita receives intensive therapy. She's been through severe trauma, and it's going to take time for her to begin healing." Faith nodded in agreement. Both of them will need close monitoring, especially Benita. Her body and mind have been through a lot. We'll need to make sure there are no lasting complications. As the team continued discussing the case, inside the room, Benita shifted in her sleep, her hand instinctively reaching toward Junior's crib. Even in her dreams, her instinct to protect him was strong. Night settled over the hospital, bringing a quiet calm. Faith, who had volunteered to stay through the night, sat in a chair beside Benita's bed, watching over her and Junior. She glanced at their peaceful faces and murmured to herself, "They're going to be okay. We'll make sure of it." It was a promise, one she intended to keep. The dawn of the third day brought a sense of tension and anticipation among the staff. The story of Benita and Junior had circulated throughout the hospital, and while everyone maintained a professional demeanor, it was clear that the case had touched each person deeply. Faith, who had spent the night caring for Benita and Junior, was relieved by Susan, another nurse who had been following the case closely. "How did it go last night?" Susan asked, her voice soft as Faith handed over her notes. Faith ran a tired hand through her hair and sighed. "Benita had a nightmare around 3 a.m., but I managed to calm her without waking Junior. Overall, it was a quiet night." Susan's face softened with compassion. "Thank you, Faith. Go get some rest. I'll take it from here." As Faith left, Dr. Carson arrived to check on his young patients. His face showed signs of exhaustion, but his eyes were focused and filled with concern. "Good morning, Susan," he greeted her quietly. "How are Benita and Junior doing?" "They're still sleeping, Doctor," Susan replied. "Benita had a restless night, but Junior has been calm." Dr. Carson walked over to the bed where Benita slept, looking small and vulnerable beneath the hospital's white sheets. Next to her in his crib, Junior slept soundly. "Today will be another difficult day," he murmured, half to himself. "Social services will be here to discuss the next steps, and Detective Elvis needs to ask Benita a few more questions." At that moment, Benita began to stir. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a moment she looked confused. Then she glanced toward Junior, and seeing him safe, she relaxed a little. "Good morning, Benita," Dr. Carson said softly. "How are you feeling?" Benita sat up slowly, her gaze still fixed on Junior. "I'm okay," she whispered. Is Junior okay?" Susan stepped forward with a reassuring smile. "He's perfectly fine, sweetheart. He slept soundly all night." Benita seemed to take comfort in that, but a shadow of worry remained. Sensing her unease, Dr. Carson sat on the edge of her bed and spoke in a gentle tone. "Benita, some people will be coming by to talk to you today. I know it might seem overwhelming, but remember, we're all here to help. We're going to make sure you're safe, okay?" Benita nodded, her eyes clouded with concern. "Are they going to take Junior away?" she asked in a barely audible voice. Dr. Carson took her hand, his expression warm and understanding. "Benita, it's complicated. You're very young to take care of a baby by yourself, but we're doing everything we can to keep you both safe and together." At that moment, Junior began to whimper softly from his crib, and Benita instantly leaned over, her face full of worry. "He's hungry," she said, surprising the adults with her natural intuition. Susan, the nurse, smiled and stepped forward. "You're right, Benita. Would you like to help me prepare his bottle?" Benita's face brightened at the idea, and for a moment her worries seemed to fade. She followed Susan, watching closely as the nurse showed her how to measure the formula and fill the bottle. Together, they returned to Junior, and Benita beamed as she helped feed him, taking in every bit of guidance Susan offered. By mid-morning, Alexa, the social worker, arrived with a new visitor, a warm-looking woman Benita had never seen before. Dr. Carson met them outside Benita's room. "Good morning, Alexa," Dr. Carson greeted. "How are things moving along?" Alexa sighed, her face showing the strain of a long night, but her eyes sparkled with hope. "It's been busy, but I think we have some good news. Dr. Carson, this is Mrs. Martinez. She's one of our best foster parents." Mrs. Martinez, a kind-looking middle-aged woman, extended her hand with a warm smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Dr. Carson. I've heard a lot about Benita and Junior." Dr. Carson shook her hand, a hint of relief in his expression. "Is she considering taking them both in?" Alexa nodded, smiling. "Yes. Mrs. Martinez and her husband are willing to foster both Benita and Junior, at least temporarily. They have experience with complicated cases, and we think they might be a wonderful fit." Dr. Carson's relief was clear. "That's excellent news, but we should introduce her to Benita carefully. She's been through so much already." The three entered Benita's room, where the young girl was still seated on the bed, holding Junior as Susan showed her how to gently change his diaper. Benita looked up as they came in, her eyes moving cautiously from Alexa to Mrs. Martinez. Alexa stepped forward and said softly, "Benita, there's someone here who would like to meet you." Benita's eyes lingered on Mrs. Martinez, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension in her gaze. Mrs. Martinez approached with a reassuring smile. "Hello, Benita. I'm Isabel Martinez," she said warmly. "I've heard so much about you and Junior." Benita instinctively held Junior a little tighter, her voice small as she asked, Are you going to take him away?" Alexa quickly spoke up, reassuring Benita. "No, sweetheart. Mrs. Martinez is here to talk with you about the possibility of both you and Junior living with her and her family for a little while." Benita's eyes widened in surprise. "Together?" Mrs. Martinez nodded and sat gently on the edge of the bed. "Yes, sweetie, together. My husband and I have a big house with lots of room, and we've taken care of other children who've had hard times too." Benita seemed to consider this, her small hands clutching Junior protectively. "Will I still be able to take care of Junior?" she asked, her voice full of both hope and uncertainty. Mrs. Martinez's eyes softened as she smiled at Benita. "Of course you will. You'll be able to help take care of him, but we also want you to have the chance to just be a kid, to play, to learn, and to grow." Benita bit her lip, deep in thought, her emotions a mixture of relief, worry, and the overwhelming feeling of change. Dr. Carson, who had been observing the interaction carefully, gently asked, "Benita, this is a lot to take in. Do you have any questions for Mrs. Martinez?" After a long pause, Benita finally asked, her voice trembling, What if my mom tries to find me?" A heavy silence filled the room. Finally, Alexa spoke, her voice calm but firm. "Benita, we're still looking for your mom, but right now the most important thing is making sure you and Junior are safe and well cared for." Martinez added softly, "If your mom does come back, we'll work together to decide what's best for you and Junior. We'll make sure you're safe." Benita's shoulders relaxed a little, though the concern remained in her eyes. Just then, Junior began to stir in her arms, as if sensing her anxiety. "Shh, it's okay," Benita murmured, gently rocking him, instinctively calming him in a way that did not go unnoticed by the adults. Dr. Carson exchanged a glance with Alexa. "Benita, how would you feel if Mrs. Martinez came by to visit you for the next few days? That way, you could get to know her better and ask her any questions you might have." Benita considered the suggestion, glancing up at Mrs. Martinez shyly. "Okay," she replied softly. Mrs. Martinez's face lit up. "I'd love that, Benita, and if you like, I can bring some books or games to help keep you entertained while you're here." A small smile broke through on Benita's face. "Really? Could you bring books about angels, like Junior?" Mrs. Martinez's face softened, clearly touched. "Of course, Benita, I'll bring you the very best angel books I can find." As their conversation continued, the room's atmosphere gradually relaxed, and Benita began to feel a little more comfortable with Mrs. Martinez. Meanwhile, outside, Detective Elvis was waiting for Dr. Carson and Alexa to discuss the case. "How's it going?" Detective Elvis asked quietly. Dr. Carson sighed, his expression a mixture of hope and caution. "It's a slow process, but I think we're making progress. Mrs. Martinez seems like she could be a very good option for Benita and Junior." Alexa nodded. "It's still early, but we're off to a promising start." Detective Elvis's face turned serious. We've still had no luck finding her mother. As for her stepfather, we arrested him last night as he tried to cross the border. Relief and concern filled Dr. Carson's expression. That's one less threat, he said, his voice subdued. Detective Elvis continued. We're working to avoid a trial for Benita if possible. Between the medical evidence and a confession we're hoping to obtain, she might be spared further trauma. Alexa exhaled with relief. She's already been through so much. That would be a blessing. Back in the room, Mrs. Martinez was patiently answering Benita's questions, showing her pictures of her house and garden. We even have a swing set in the backyard, she told her, and lots of flowers. Do you like flowers? Benita's cheeks turned a little pink as she nodded. I like sunflowers. They're big and bright. Mrs. Martinez smiled warmly. What a coincidence. We have a beautiful sunflower garden. Maybe you could help me take care of them when you come stay with us. For the first time since arriving at the hospital, Benita's face lit up with hope. Could I really do that? Of course, sweetheart. And if you want, you can even help me cook. Do you like to cook? Benita's face fell a little. I've never cooked, but I'd like to learn. The conversation continued as Mrs. Martinez described life at her home, answering Benita's questions with endless patience and reassurance. With every passing minute, Benita grew a little more comfortable and hopeful. Near sunset, as Mrs. Martinez prepared to leave, Benita surprised everyone by asking, When can we go to your house? Her voice was small, as if she feared the answer. Mrs. Martinez looked over at Dr. Carson, who nodded encouragingly. She turned back to Benita with a warm smile. Well, that depends on what Dr. Carson says. We need to make sure you and Junior are strong enough to leave the hospital first. But I promise, as soon as the doctor says you're ready, my husband and I will be here to take you home. Benita nodded, a small but genuine smile lighting up her face. Thank you, she whispered. As Mrs. Martinez left, she promised to return the next day with books about angels, leaving behind a young girl with a tiny but growing glimmer of hope for her future. Dr. Carson approached Benita with a gentle expression. How are you feeling, Benita? He asked softly. Benita looked down at Junior, who was sleeping peacefully in her arms before meeting Dr. Carson's gaze. I'm scared, she admitted in a whisper. But I think Mrs. Cosby is nice and I want Junior to be safe. Dr. Carson smiled kindly, reassured by Benita's protective nature. That's a very mature way to think, Benita. And you're right, Mrs. Cosby seems like a wonderful person. We're doing everything we can to make sure you and Junior are safe and happy. Benita gave a small nod, her eyes lingering on her baby brother's face. Doctor, do you think I'm a bad person for wanting to keep Junior? I know I'm young, but I don't want to let him go. Dr. Carson's heart ached at her words. He sat beside her, choosing his words with care. Benita, listen to me. You are not a bad person, not even a little. The love you feel for Junior is beautiful and strong, and it shows how much you care. But you're still very young. Right now, your most important job is to grow, to heal, and to learn. We'll make sure Junior stays in your life as you do all that. Tears slipped down Benita's cheeks and she whispered, I'm just scared. What if he forgets me? Dr. Carson reached out and held her hand gently. He won't forget you, Benita. Mrs. Cosby has already promised that you'll be part of Junior's life, and we'll make sure that stays true. At that moment, Faith DeMola, who had returned for her afternoon shift, entered the room and noticed Benita's tears. She moved quickly to the bed and put a comforting arm around her. What's wrong, sweetheart? She asked, sitting beside her. Benita sniffled, wiping her tears. Everything is changing so fast, Faith. I don't know what's going to happen. Faith wrapped her in a warm embrace, careful not to disturb Junior. It's completely okay to feel scared, Benita. Look around. Dr. Carson, Mrs. Cosby, Alexa, me. We're all here to help you, and all of us want what's best for you and Junior. Benita leaned into Faith's comforting embrace, finally letting herself cry openly for the first time since coming to the hospital. Dr. Carson and Faith exchanged worried but understanding glances. This moment, they knew, was a small but important step toward healing. After a few moments, Benita calmed, wiping away the last of her tears. I'm sorry, she murmured, embarrassed. Faith gently stroked her hair. Sweetheart, you have nothing to be sorry for. Crying is just another way to let out all the pain you've been carrying. Dr. Carson nodded, adding, You've been incredibly strong, Benita. But remember, it's okay to let others help when things feel too heavy. That's why we're all here." Just then, Junior began to squirm, his small hands reaching up as he made soft noises. Benita's focus shifted instantly to him. "I think he's hungry," she observed, her voice calmer now. Faith smiled, warmed by the sight. "You're probably right. Let me get a bottle ready for him." She left the room briefly and returned with the bottle, passing it to Benita, who began feeding Junior with a gentle touch. "Benita, you're doing wonderfully," Faith said with pride. "You're learning so quickly." Benita smiled shyly. "Susan taught me a lot. She said I was a fast learner." As Benita fed Junior, Dr. Carson sat beside her, a serious look crossing his face. "Benita, there's something important I need to tell you," he began carefully. "The police, they found your stepfather." Benita froze, her eyes widening with fear. Is he coming here?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "No, absolutely not," Dr. Carson reassured her quickly. "He's in police custody now, Benita. He can't come near you or Junior ever again." Benita seemed to absorb this, looking down at her brother, as if he held all the courage she needed. "What happens next?" she asked quietly, still unsure. Dr. Carson sighed. "There will be a legal process, but we're doing our best to protect you from having to relive anything painful. Your focus should be on healing and on being here for Junior." Faith gently squeezed Benita's hand. "And you'll have us with you every step of the way. You're not alone." Benita nodded slowly, relief softening her features, though the news clearly still weighed on her. Junior, having finished his bottle, wriggled in her arms. "I think he needs to burp," Benita said with a hint of a smile. Faith chuckled. "You're right, and I can show you how." She gently showed Benita how to place Junior over her shoulder and pat his back to help him burp. Dr. Carson watched, his heart full of admiration for the strength Benita had shown, knowing her journey was far from over. As the afternoon stretched on, more hospital staff stopped by Benita's room to offer their support. Some came to check in on Junior, others just to say hello. It seemed the story of Benita and Junior had touched the entire hospital. Susan, who had finished her shift hours earlier, returned with a small gift in her hands. "Hi, Benita," she greeted warmly. "I brought you something." Benita's eyes lit up as she took the package. Carefully, she opened it to find a small photo album inside. "I thought you might want to keep some memories of you and Junior," Susan explained. "I put in a few photos from the last few days, and there's space for many more." Benita's eyes filled with tears as she flipped through the album, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Susan," she whispered. "It's beautiful." Over the next hour, other staff members brought small gifts. One nurse brought a teddy bear for Junior. Another handed Benita a storybook. The cleaning staff brought drawings from their own children to decorate Benita's room. Dr. Carson watched with pride as this small hospital community rallied around these two children, creating a safe and warm space for them. By the end of the day, Benita's room was transformed from a sterile hospital room into a cozy, colorful place filled with toys, books, and reminders of care. Exhausted but visibly more at ease, Benita prepared for bed. Faith helped her settle in, tucking Junior into his crib. "Faith?" Benita asked sleepily. "Do you think everything's going to be okay?" Faith smiled, brushing a stray hair from Benita's face. "Yes, sweetheart. I believe everything will be okay. You're surrounded by people who love you, and you're braver than you think." Benita nodded, her eyes drifting closed as she whispered, "Thank you." Faith stayed by her side for a moment, watching the siblings sleep peacefully, then slipped into the hallway where Dr. Carson waited. "How are they?" he asked in a hushed voice. Faith smiled warily. "Asleep. It's been a long day, but I think it's done Benita a world of good. She needed to see that she's not alone." Dr. Carson gazed thoughtfully out the window at the end of the hall as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting warm shades of orange and pink across the sky. "You know," he began softly, "when Benita first arrived 3 days ago, I feared the worst for her and Junior, but watching how everyone here has rallied around them, it really gives me hope." Faith Demola nodded, sharing his quiet reflection. "It's incredible how a little girl and her baby brother can bring so many people together. They're going to need every bit of that support in the days to come." Dr. Carson glanced back at Faith, a calm determination in his eyes. "Yes, it won't be easy, but at least they won't have to face it alone. They have a family here now, one that's come together from the heart, not just blood. The sun's last rays faded, marking the end of an emotional and eventful third day. Dr. Carson and Faith stood in quiet reflection, both deeply moved by the resilience of this small family they'd grown to care so much about. Inside her hospital room, Benita was finally able to sleep peacefully. Junior, sensing his sister's calmness, rested quietly beside her. Despite the uncertain future that lay ahead, a feeling of hope filled the air. With the support of the hospital staff, these two children, each carrying a world of hardship on their young shoulders, would have a chance to overcome life's challenges. Benita and Junior's story was just beginning, but they now had something they hadn't before: a new family, ready to stand by them and fight for their happiness. The bonds they had formed with Dr. Carson, Faith, Susan, Alexa, and so many others at the hospital were built from love, patience, and understanding, offering a brighter, love-filled future. I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please go ahead and generously hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating tales like this. We'd love to hear from you. What lessons have you learned from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next story.